Hi everyone, my name is Gaurav Malhotra and I'm a Principal Group Program Manager in the Microsoft Purview Data Governance team. Today, the session that we are talking about is Unified Data Governance with Microsoft Purview. In this session, we'll be focusing on the following things. We'll start with a refresher of what are some of the data governance challenges that we are seeing working with customers and also from a field perspective. Then we'll focus on what is Microsoft Purview Data Governance, and you'll see that since the last time I came on the Data Platform Summit last year, what things we have added with respect to our strategy for data governance. Then we'll deep dive into the Microsoft Purview Data Map, the Data Catalog, the Data Estate Insights, which is the app which recently went GA. We'll focus the last part of the session on the roadmap and also talk about some of the customer stories. All right, so let's get started. So as I mentioned last year as well, we've been seeing the emergence of this role called Chief Data Officer. And primarily there are two ends of the spectrum where on the left side, customers are looking to centralize and discover what exists in their organization. So they're looking to understand what data do they have, can they trust that data, and where did that data come from? And on the other end of the spectrum, from a compliance perspective, they want to understand the risk profile of the data. They want to make sure that the data that is being used in the organization is compliant to industry regulations like GDPR, CCPA, and how they are able to control access and understand the use of data in their organization. So we've been seeing this emergence of this role called Chief Data Officer and companies looking to solve this discovery and compliance problem, and this Chief Data Officer role becoming more and more interdisciplinary. Now, if I talk about what Microsoft Purview is, I'll start from bottom and make my way upwards. As I mentioned last time as well, from get-go, we've embraced the hybrid nature of the customer's data estate, which means data could be on-prem, multi-cloud, SaaS sources, operational sources, and we have this data discovery and classification service which goes out to the customer hybrid data estate and builds what we call as the Purview data map. Now, think of this data map as a graph where we are capturing key pieces of information like technical metadata. So as these scanners are running, they're capturing what is the column name, column type. They're also capturing the end-to-end lineage to say, starting from this raw data, which could be in your Salesforce instance or in your Teradata instance, then copying it to, let's say, data lake in Azure, then running some transformation in your Synapse pipelines, landing it into a warehouse, and then to the presentation layer in Power BI. To be able to stitch that end-to-end lineage and do it both at an object level, also as a column level, is one of the key use cases with Microsoft Purview data governance. The second piece is what we call as the semantic metadata. And here we have out-of-the-box classifiers where across different domains like personal, government, security, where our classifiers can run and then essentially say, oh, this column is a social security number, or this column is an Australia tax file number. And as I mentioned, we have 200 plus out of the box today, and we are continuously looking to add more. And not only the out-of-the-box classifiers, but customers can bring their own as well. So they can come and say, oh, I have this transaction ID column in my database, and I can represent the semantics of that using a regular expression. And today we have support for data dictionaries, where you can come in and provide us a set of values, and when these classifiers run, they are able to see if those values are detected. They can tag the column, like in this case, as transaction ID. Or we have also integrated with Microsoft Research Technologies, where you throw us a file and we are automatically able to deduce the regular expression corresponding to it to apply these bring your own classifiers. Now, one of the key things that I do want to mention with this classification exercise is that this is the only time we touch the data. And here we take a sample of the data and we use intelligent sampling mechanisms to essentially to get the sample and apply this classification tag. And this sample is only persisted in memory to determine the classification and then discard it. The data never comes back to our service. So you could have your Purview data map provisioned in, let's say, in North America, and you could have a data lake in Australia, And in that case, we are smart enough to recognize that your data is in Australia and will automatically instrument our scanning service in that region. So underneath our data map layer, there's a scanning service that says that which is live today in 24 regions covering all the major geographies. So it guarantees that your data does not leave geographic boundaries when we are doing this classification exercise. And it's a very key point because your data map which holds the metadata could be in a location different than where the classification exercise is happening. And it guarantees your data sovereignty things and all of that. And then there is business metadata as well, where essentially along with technical metadata, a lot of our users are business users as well, and they don't understand terms like SQL DB or storage container. They're looking for terms like percentage revenue. And today you can use that business context and stamp to that business context onto assets in your Purview data map. And then you'll see that using the Purview Data Catalog app, you can use that business context to search information from the data map as well. Now, this data map is part of the Purview platform, which is fully conformant with open source Apache Atlas. Now, that's a key point because today we have 50 plus sources and file formats that we support out of the box. And we are on a very aggressive journey to double and triple these connectors. But at the same time, because we are conformant with open source Apache Atlas, Atlas is a type system, you can use that extensibility hook to always create a custom type. Let's say IBM Informix that doesn't support. You can create a custom type of IBM Informix and use our support for open APIs to push and pull information in the map. So you can think of those 50 plus sources that we support out of the box as known types. And then you can always define custom types and use our extensibility hooks to push and pull information from the map, and you don't get blocked even if your source is not supported today. And we are continuously looking to add more and more sources, but till your source comes into the system and is supported as a system type, you can still use the custom type support with open source Apache Atlas. And our support with data map to push and pull information in the map. And you'll see that our applications on top of the data map work as fine with system types as they work with custom types. So you can see here that we have taken a platform-based approach where I explained you what is the platform, how we've embraced the hybrid nature of the data estate. And now on top of this platform, we have different applications starting with Purview Data Catalog. Now, Data Catalog allows you to browse and search information in the Purview data map. It is fully backed by an elastic search index, which means it is blazing fast, automatically give you recommendations, suggestions. It has a full-blown business glossary experience as well, which means you can define your business terms, you can bulk import them, you can define business terms based on what we call as term templates, which means that you can create a term template for, let's say, a finance hierarchy and say that any business term in my finance hierarchy has to have these 10 attributes. So you can create those term templates for different business domains in your organization as well. Then there is data sharing, where as the data producers and consumers discover information in the Purview data map using catalog, they might want to share the actual data inside and outside your organization. So this is something that we've added since last year. This is where we launched a capability to do in-place sharing with Azure Data Lake. Then there is master data management. This is another app where we are actually not looking to build in-house. We are actually partnering with industry-leading vendors like Prophecy, Tamer, to essentially build these solutions, Clueden to build these solutions, and the solutions from Clueden and Prophecy are already live, and you can use those to essentially enable master data management in your organization. And again, these organizations, these vendors are able to build these solutions because of the openness of the map, and hence they're able to push and pull information into the map and build these MDM solutions. Then there is Data Estate Insights. Now, this is one of the newest apps that went GA. It was just announced at Build, where Here, like from a chief data officer perspective, they can use this app to understand how is my data distributed across my data estate, or they want to understand the risk profile of data. Where does the sensitive data exist in my organization? So we have these bunch of out-of-the-box reports that the CDOs can use. Another example is stewardship dashboard. Again, this is the latest one that we've added since the last time I came on the Data Platform Summit, which allows customers to see the process health and kind of see the different scores across ownership and all in the organization. I'll show you this as part of the demo as well. And finally, the data policy app, which is very important to us because as you discover information, you kind of apply these classification tags. Ultimately, you want to enforce your policies on the data that exists in the organization. And so far, you've been used to what we call as the role-based access control, which means that you have defined roles in AD, you put people in those roles, and then you control access based on those roles and people in those roles. But with the explosion of data, more and more folks want to control access based on the attributes of the data, or they want to have a single pane of glass where they can define these policies to control access across the entire data estate. So we have added this data policy capability. Again, this is in preview. There are a couple of use cases that are in preview, and there are a bunch more that we are working to add over upcoming iterations. Now, you can see over here that the platform is generally available, the data catalog and data estates insights are generally available, and the data sharing, master data management, and data policy are in public preview right now. And we are working towards enabling them in GA as well in upcoming iterations. Now with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of focus on the particular pieces of Microsoft Purview, starting with the data map and catalog. And I'm actually going to do all of this with the help of a demo, and then I'll come back and kind of cover the slides, which will actually make sense. So let's do that from the lens of a demo. So I'm going to switch to demo here. I'm in Azure portal, and you can provision Purview just like any other Azure service, the data governance part, and you'll see why I'm calling it as data governance. So you can provision a Purview account for data governance in Azure portal. Once you provision, you get a blade like this. You can see that since last time we have added certain monitoring capabilities for you to monitor your data map capacity units, your data map storage size. And then once you provision, you can click open Microsoft Purview portal and launch your Purview Studio. Now, once I do that, I'll land onto this home page in Purview, where you can see that I've already cataloged millions of assets across a bunch of sources, and some of those are petabyte-sized lakes. So before I go into how this gets populated, let's understand the structure of the page. So here you can start to consume information from the Purview data map. Here, because I'm a super admin, hence I can connect to sources, I can browse assets, I can manage my business terms, I can set up scans, some of the recently accessed items, some if I have pinned any item over here, and some quick links for you to get started. So before going into the consumption part, let's understand how easy it is to populate the Purview data map. So I'm going to switch into this data map section, and you can see that I have this data map, which I have chosen to organize by data centers. Now here we have this concept called collections, which again, since the last time I came, we have enabled it for you to do, to manage organize your data map and also do fine-grained access control, which means that you can say that I have certain assets in this North Europe data center, which I only want a subsection of my organization to be able to look at. So you can essentially lock it down and say only these people will be able to discover these assets. So the collections allow you to organize your data map and also allow you to do fine-grained access control. And here I've chosen to organize by data centers, but it is a fully flexible concept, which means you can choose to organize it in any hierarchy if you want, and you can have a collection inside a collection as well. Okay. Now, before I go into setting up a scan, let me actually quickly show you the breadth of sources. And again, since the last time, the connectivity has increased multifold, where pretty much everything in Azure is supported. We are starting our multi-cloud journey with Amazon S3. We've added the RDS instances support in Amazon as well. We do support from multi-cloud perspective, Google BigQuery, Google Looker. We've added support for on-prem instances like DB2, Oracle, Teradata, all your Salesforce, your SAP instances, on-prem SQL Server, even the SQL Server on Arc is enabled, and Snowflake as well, that was recently added, and Power BI from a presentation layer perspective as well. So you can see that the connectivity keeps on increasing. And as I mentioned, we are on a very aggressive journey to double and triple these connectors in the upcoming iterations. So now, once you have created your collections, organized to how to organize your data map, you have registered a source, and it's pretty much a click to register a source, you can easily set up a scan in your Purview data map. Now, let's just quickly see if I choose a particular source on how easy it is to set up a scan. So let's look at this data lake instance. And here you can see the history of the scans that we have set up and how many assets that we have discovered or classified. You can look at the source hierarchy, the collection path, when it was registered. I can say new scan. And here you can see that we are fully integrated with Azure Key Vault, where we are not storing your credentials. We are getting them on the fly, so we don't persist them. You can do test connections to do sanity checks and make sure all of the things work fine. And also you can see that we have support for how you want to do the scanning. Now, by default, any source that has cloud connectivity runs through the Azure integration runtime, which we automatically manage, scale and up and down. But you can also use the self-hosted integration runtime if you want to use that in your organization to do that. Although a recommendation for cloud connected sources is to use the Azure integration runtime. And then you can choose to say where this particular assets will be organized that will be discovered as part of the scan, in which collection. You can continue, and you can essentially scope your scans to say that which portion of your data lake you want to scan. Let's just keep everything selected over here. You can set up a scan rule set, and for every source that we support, we have a default one as well, where pretty much everything is selected. But let me just show you what a scan rule set is. So let's just say custom data lake, and here you can choose the file types. So you can say that I want to discover all the files that are delimited type, the document file types, Parquet, XML, Evro, or you can define your own file types as well. One of the things that we learned working with customers is that they have these extensions in the organization, and internally these files are nothing but actually like, let's say, a JSON, right? So you can create these mappings, and this makes the scanner smart to say, if you detect a .cust extension, treat it as a JSON file when you're doing the scanning. Okay. Let's say continue and keep everything selected. So now you can essentially select the classifications. As I mentioned, we have 200 plus out of the box across different domains like government, pretty much across the world. Everything in government is supported. We do support everything, all the major ones across finance as well, in terms of the Canada Bank routing number, the Japan Bank account number, etc. Personal, your date of birth, email address, and all of that is supported as well. And as I mentioned, you can bring your own classifiers as well and define your custom rules with regular expressions, data dictionaries, and all as well. So let's just say continue. And then as these scanners are running, you can define regular expression patterns that basically come up with files that you want to exclude during the entire scan. And that's pretty much it, right? So you can create this particular scan rule set. So let's just say we create that. In this case, I didn't create. I just wanted to show you the process. So let's use the default one selected, and then you just say how often you want this scan to run, and that's it. So within less than 3 minutes, you are able to register a source, you are able to set up a scan, and this is a truly serverless infrastructure where we provision the infra, we scale it up and down to give you the best in class performance, and it's totally managed by us. And you as a customer just do the registration and set up the scan. Okay. So you saw that how easy it is to register your source and set up scanning, and how you can organize your sources in the data map using collections, how you can control access. So as I mentioned, if you look at the details, you can see that there are role assignments here, which basically allows you to determine who can see the assets in this particular collection. So you can essentially edit the role assignments. You can say that in the hierarchy, do the permissions inherit or not inherit. So all of those knobs you have the availability to control, and you can define owners or data stewards or experts for these as well. Okay. So now that we have populated the map, now let's go back and essentially see how easy it is to consume information from the Purview data map. So let's say our company ran a marketing campaign and we want to see the impact of sales on that marketing campaign. So if I come and type the word sales, you can see that the system is automatically giving me suggestions. It is automatically able to relate this term with physical assets in the Purview data map. When I hit enter, now I have the ability to filter it down by various filter types. And again, we have kind of evolved this based on customer feedback since last time, where instead of just having more tech-friendly filter types, we have more business-friendly filter types like dashboard, data pipelines, file, folder, or by business process or data domains that you have created in your organization, or business terms that you have, or by an organization that you want to filter down, or by collection, the ownership hierarchy that you have created, or classification, or by your contacts that you have defined. And one of the things is we are also fully integrated with Microsoft Information Protection Labels, which means that if you have defined your labels in Security and Compliance Center and M365, earlier they were limited to your Office assets, but now they can flow to your entire data estate, which means SQL columns, Cosmos DB collections with Microsoft Purview as well. And you can have your business terms as well. So let's say I want to filter it down by this business term, market development and sales. This table looks interesting to me, and I can see that it is certified, which gives me a good indicator that this is something that might be good for me to look at. So I go inside to look at more details. Now I can look at classifications at the column level, at the table level. I can look at the business semantics applied to this, the hierarchy, the collection path. I can look at further properties corresponding to this as well, or the entire schema, which is the column name, the classifications at the column level, the Microsoft Information Protection labels, all the business terms, data types, or description. I can look at the end-to-end lineage to say that starting from this SQL table, what processes are being fed to. So in this case, a Synapse copy activity and generating this a blob resource set. And I can look at it at a table level, but also at a column level as well, to say that if I'm a data scientist and I want to say that if I were to change this column, what impact will it have downstream or upstream? So I would be able to do impact analysis. Or let's say if this pipeline failed, then this will show the red indication, and I'll be able to do a root cause analysis to say what failed for this particular copy activity to fail. Or even from a business analyst perspective, imagine you are in your Power BI dashboard and the report for that day is not loading. So you being able to go to the raw data set to figure out what changed and follow that path all the way down to your Power BI dashboard or the report to understand what failed that is preventing that report from loading. So all of that is available at your fingertips now. Then I can look at the owners, the experts for this particular asset, or I could browse this in a hierarchical manner as well. So just like I would do that in a SQL Server Management Studio, I'm able to do that, browse it over here as well. And this works for both structured as well as unstructured data. So now let's say I was a data scientist and this is the data set I want to use. So I can actually use this productivity gestures that we've enabled, where you can open this up directly in Power BI desktop. Now we will automatically create the pbits file. Now in this case, it's not installed, so you can install it and then the pbits file will get created. And all you need to do is provide your connection string. Like even the connection string would load, you'll just have to provide your password to connect and start using this in your data science or data analytical processes. So again, great from a data scientist, data analyst perspective. Another thing that we've enabled here is what we call as this request access. Now, here you're looking at the metadata and information, and you can start to use this in your productivity tools like Power BI desktop. But if you didn't have access to this actual data asset, you can actually request access right from here as well. So you can say that I like to use this in my data science process. And here, what we have done is we have enabled this capability called workflows. And in this case, it's a self-service access workflow, which behind the scenes, what this has done is it has sent an email to the owner of this particular data set to say, do you want to approve this access or not? And if he or she approves, then we go and integrate with our policy ecosystem, which I mentioned to you as part of our Microsoft Purview data governance, where we'll go and create this self-service access policy, which you have full capability to change if you wanted to, right? So the policy would be created, and in that particular case, you can edit or change those policies to limit the access. And if the owner approves it, then that person would get the actual access to this particular data asset. And as I mentioned, this is available to you with our capability called as workflows. So what has happened behind the scenes, we've enabled this. If you go in the management center, we have this capability called workflows, where we have enabled these out-of-the-box templates. And currently there are a couple of templates enabled, one for self-service access, another for business term approval, or CRUD, if you will. So you can see that in this case, when we requested the access, it triggered this workflow. And no surprises, underneath the hoods, we have integrated with Logic Apps. If you know about the Power Platform ecosystem in Microsoft, Logic App is a workflow engine. So we have integrated with that. And out of the box, this default template gets enabled for self-service access. You can edit this as well. So if you want in your organization to call a third-party thing before that approval can be granted, so you can edit this particular workflow, and you can essentially change it to add another action, if you will, if you want to customize this self-service access workflow as well. But basically what happened was a data reader, let's say, or a data analyst or data scientist requested access. It triggered this self-service access workflow. The owner got the email to approve or deny. All of that can be tracked from an owner perspective in this request and approval section, in terms of what is waiting for a response, what can be approved or what has been approved or denied. All that history is enabled, so they can do over here in terms of tracking purposes as well. Now you can imagine that we are starting this with Azure Data Lake. We'll extend it to all the RPs in Microsoft ecosystem. But for third-party systems like Oracle, Teradata, this request access will be used from a bookkeeping standpoint, where again, as you request access, it will still trigger an email to the owner of that particular Oracle asset, but then that owner has to work with the owner of that, the administrator of that Oracle database, to grant you access, come back here, mark this, yeah, approved, so that from a tracking or a bookkeeping perspective, they're still able to see all their requests and approvals in here. But for those third-party ecosystem where we have no control over, this will be used from a bookkeeping standpoint. But for the first-party ecosystem, which is basically every Microsoft system that we control, we'll be able to extend all the way and create that self-service access policy to grant you the actual access to the data asset. So there's a great capability that we have made live, which we call as workflows. It's in public preview as part of the Purview data catalog. So coming back, again, we saw that how you're able to discover information, you're able to look at the different metadata, whether it is technical metadata, semantic metadata, business metadata, the end-to-end lineage, who is the owner, data steward, expert for this particular data set. You're able to browse it. You can request access to the actual data asset, and you're able to open this up in a tool of your choice as well. And we are continuously looking to integrate with more and more tools over here from a productivity standpoint. So the full loop of how you are able to organize your data map, how you're able to register assets, set up scans, populate your data map, how from a consumption standpoint, you're able to search information in the data map, look at the different types of metadata, request access, open this up in the tool of your choice from a productivity standpoint and start using it, how that whole loop is complete. And not only that, what we've also done is we've integrated this with systems like Synapse. Like in this case, I'm in a Synapse workspace where we have enabled this Purview powered search now. So earlier, all that was existing in Synapse was this local search, which was the search local to that workspace. But now what we have done is we've enabled this Purview powered search, where if you are a data scientist or data analyst, now you're able to go across your Synapse workspaces and not only discover assets that are local to your Synapse workspace, but also that exist in your entire organization, because all those Synapse workspaces are hooked up to that Purview account, and Purview internally is able to discover all those Synapse assets. And not only that, all the third-party assets like Oracle Teradata as well, which your data scientist or data analyst who is in the Synapse workspace didn't even know existed in your organization. So again, this is hooked up to the same Purview account. So if I type sales, you can see that it's the exact same query that's running, which is fully integrated with your Synapse workspace. You can further filter it down just like we did over there. You can dive deeper into a particular one. And what we've also done is enable these productivity gestures, right? Where as these load, you can start to connect to this particular SQL. If you don't have access, you can immediately open up in your data flow as well. So all of these productivity gestures have been enabled in your Synapse workspace as well. Okay. So now we talked about from a data producer or data consumer standpoint, and also from an admin standpoint in terms of setting up the map. But now if we switch personas, and talk about the CDOs. I showed you the data policy pieces with respect to self-service access policy, but another app, the Data Estate Insights, which just recently went GA at Build in May of this year, is what we have also enabled for chief data officers. Now, in this case, we have these out-of-the-box reports. We recently added this report as part of our GA release, which we call as Data Stewardship, which allows our CDOs to understand key metrics about their data estate health and performance in terms of catalog usage, adoption, the data ownership. One of the biggest problems that we hear from enterprises today is to be able to understand the ownership of data assets, like who owns this particular data asset in my organization, right? And similarly, from a curation standpoint as well, where there's a particular definition of curation to say that if your asset has an owner, description, and classification, then it's a curated asset. And again, we have defined these definitions, but what we are working towards is making these customizable, because we completely understand that every organization might have their own definition of curation and they might want to customize this. But this gets to see you the approach that we are taking and the direction that we are moving in. And then we have these asset insights as well, where you can essentially look at, again, from a distribution perspective, how is your data distributed across your data estate. You can look at these classification insights to understand, again, the risk profile of the data. So to say, for example, the international bank account number, right? Where is it in my organization? So you can start from these top level views. You can go down to the actual asset where these were stamped, right? So whole that navigation is enabled, starting from the top views to the detailed views as well, right? Now, there are a bunch of interesting things that we are doing for data state insights, which I'll talk about in the roadmap as well. But this is great from a chief data officer perspective to understand what exists in your organization, to understand the risk profile of the data, to understand the catalog usage, adoption, the health metrics in their data state as well. Okay. So that was a quick demo of what exists that you can essentially go and provision a Microsoft Purview data governance account, and what you can use today and essentially enable for your organization. Okay. Now coming back to the presentation. So I'm going to move this a little bit faster because now we talked about all of these pieces in the demo, where we talked about the Purview data map, which contains the technical, semantic, business, crowd metadata, and we are continuously looking to add more and more things over here. In terms of sources, we have 50 plus today. We are looking to add more. We have this whole data discovery and classification piece, and it's truly a differentiator when we compare it with the other pure play providers or hyperscale cloud providers in the market that exist today, where our infrastructure is truly serverless. It works cloud, has an installable agent on-prem. It supports a range of network topologies, which includes on-prem, VNet. It's live in 23 regions, covering 12 geographies. We already have an industry-leading partnership that gives us 100 plus sources. And as I mentioned, we have 50 plus enabled today, and we are on a very aggressive journey to double and triple those so that we can reach that 100 plus number soon. Similarly, data classification and labeling, which I again mentioned multiple times now, where we have 200 plus classifiers out of the box. You can bring your own classifier as well. You can label consistently across Office, SQL Server, Azure, and Power BI using our support for Microsoft Information Protection labels as well. And the lineage extraction pieces that we have, which allow you to see starting from the raw data to transformations, to your warehouse, to your presentation layer in Power BI. This end-to-end lineage is one of the true differentiator that we have in comparison to the market. And then whatever I showed you in the demo visually can be done through APIs. We have still full support for REST APIs, Python, .NET SDK as well, right? So if you are an ISP, or if you are looking to use our programmatic service as an enterprise customer, you can do that as well. Then we talked about the Purview data catalog, which once the information is in the Purview data map, you're able to search and browse the information. We have a full-blown experience for business glossary in there. You can do interactive lineage visualization starting from the raw data to your ETL processing to Power BI. And I showed you the example of workflows as well. A self-service access workflow. We have another type that we've enabled, which for business term approval for any of your CRUD with respect to business terms. And we are continuously looking to add more and more out of the box templates from a workflow standpoint. And you, as a customer, you can customize these workflows as well based on your need. Then we have this data state insights piece, which again, from a chief data officer perspective, allows you to get a bird's eye view of your data state. There are different types of the out-of-the-box reports that we have enabled. There are certain that we are working on with respect to data location and movement that will allow you to see how's your data getting copied from one geography to another, one location to another. All of that is in progress as well. So there are different types of reports, and then we are looking to enable customize out of the box, enable customization for you as well, where you can customize these reports based on your needs or the KPIs that you want to track in your organization as well. So more about that I'll talk in the roadmap. So I showed you the end-to-end demo already, so we went past that. Now, one of the key things to understand is that we have this platform-based approach, which allows us to enable the first-party apps in Microsoft. Like in this case, you can see that Microsoft Sentinel has actually built a solution on top of the Purview data map, where As we scan the hybrid data state, we capture the classified information. We can Sentinel is able to enable this security posture solution on top of it. From a third-party perspective, as I mentioned, the MDM solution, which we are not looking to build in-house, we're actually partnering with third-party vendors, industry-leading vendors. Actually, in this case, this is an example from Prophecy. We've also done it with Clueden, and we're looking to extend that partnership to other MDM vendors as well. And again, this is possible because of the openness of our Purview data map and full conformance with open source Apache Atlas. Now, the key thing to think about is that your data in your Microsoft ecosystem is governed from get-go with Purview. So whether it is in Microsoft Azure, Power Platform, 365, which I'll talk about in the roadmap section as well, SQL Server, it will be governed from get-go. And not only that, from get-go, we've also embraced the hybrid nature, which means your data could be on-prem, multi-cloud, SaaS sources. And you saw how much we have invested and kind of increased the support of number of sources since last year, where it has literally tripled, and now 50 plus sources, and we are on our journey towards 100 plus in the upcoming iterations as well. Okay. And we also saw the deep integration that we have in the Microsoft ecosystem with Power BI, with Synapse and Purview. So in this case, as I showed you, the Purview experience is embedded inside your Synapse workspace. So now you can do a Purview powered search and search across your entire hybrid data estate and across your Synapse workspaces as well, which again earlier was only limited local to your Synapse workspace. And then we've enabled these productivity gestures as you discover information to start using that inside your Synapse workspace as well. And then, as I mentioned, also our integration with Microsoft 365 information protection, where now you can consistently classify and label data across M365, Azure, SQL Server, and Power BI. So imagine you have an Excel file with sensitive data. It is consumed for processing in Synapse, visualized in Power BI, with the report exported back to PowerPoint. This is the life cycle. It shows you in this example data flow and your Microsoft information protection label flowing all the way through, again, with the support added in Microsoft Purview data governance. So now, before I go into the roadmap and start to talk about what are the different pieces here, I actually want to talk about this brand update, because last time when I came on the Data Platform Summit, we were called Azure Purview. Now we call Microsoft Purview. So what happened earlier this year is Microsoft announced this brand update where we are now called Microsoft Purview, and underneath this umbrella, Microsoft has brought together the data governance pieces, which were formerly called as Azure Purview, which includes the data map, data catalog, the upcoming pieces with quality. You already saw data state insights, policy sharing, and the risk and compliance pieces that exist in the Security and Compliance Center in M365 under a single umbrella called Microsoft Purview. Now, as of today, you still have to go provision the data governance piece in Azure portal. You still procure this E3, E5 licenses and enable this risk and compliance solution. But in future, we are working to bring both of these pieces more and more together as a unified platform and apps enabled on that platform. But I wanted to take a moment to talk about this brand update so there's no confusion that where did Azure Purview go away. It's part of this Microsoft Purview umbrella. This is the data governance piece. The risk compliance piece that exists in Security and Compliance Center is still there, still part of the M365 E3, E5 licenses. And over a period of time, we are bringing these more and more together, and you'll see that in upcoming iterations as well. So now coming to the roadmap part, where, as I mentioned, we have a platform-based approach where we have the platform, we have apps on top. So as part of the platform, our data map is already generally available. we recently added the support for custom attributes and types. Now, earlier, when we scanned a particular data asset, it has attributes which are what the scanner returned back to us is what you will be as a customer will be able to see. But the biggest feedback that we got from customers was that they wanted to add custom attributes for a data asset as well. So we've enabled this custom attribute support, where now you can define additional custom attributes for your asset types like SQL, Teradata, and all of that, and enable that for your organization. And here underneath the hoods, what we have done is we've moved from Apache Atlas 2.0 to Apache Atlas 2.2, which gives us the business metadata support, and we've used that to enable that custom attribute support. The second piece I want to talk about is this meta model piece, and this is our attempt to essentially enable business users to be able to see the what is happening in their organization from a business lens. Now, so far, as you saw, that it's very technical user friendly, which means that you can look at the SQL table, you can look at this SQL table is connected to this copy activity in Synapse, landing into a data lake, then it is being fed into a transformation pipeline in Synapse, and then loading into a warehouse. So it's all technical user friendly in terms of tables. But a lot of our users, as I mentioned, are business users. So they want to see this business lens as well. So what we are working towards is enabling this capability, which we call as Purview Meta Model. And in this particular capability, you can think of that as a business user, you can start from this lens where you can understand I have these business processes and which essentially has different data domains. You can see there are different types of data, you can have an organization, a department, a project, and as I mentioned, different asset types and different relationship types on who owns what, on who produces what. So you're able to define this business lens. Ultimately, each of this gets connected to that physical layer, right? Because at the end of the day, it is this particular semantic layer that we call in the Purview Meta Model binds to that physical layer. But as a business user, you actually do not understand that physical layer, or you don't have any value in that. But you want to see the business processes, how they're related, how they are owned in your organization, to be able to track all of this. So you can start from this view. If you wanted to go down to the physical view, you are able to. But if you want to just look at this, you can do that as well. So we are working to enable this capability, and there are different logical types here that we're enabling. As you can see, business processes, data domain, system, data product, and we're going to continue to add more and more over here. So this is currently in preview. We're looking to enable this for all our customers later this year. But it allows you to see that we are working to make Purview more and more business user friendly as well. Okay. Now going back here, so now that our the last piece is automatically attachment, right? So from a platform perspective, we're attached to SQL, PBI, Synapse. We're working towards M365 integration as well. The data scan, new sources keep on getting added. We have full support for serverless scanning. We recently enabled VNet support. It is GA in certain regions as well. From an app perspective, data catalog is generally available. All the curation experiences are there. We continuously looking to add more based on customer feedback as well. I showed you how you can do self-service data access today in terms of requesting access to the actual data asset, and how you can customize those approval workflows as well. The data sharing piece, where we have the in-place sharing enabled in public preview, data state insights, which is generally available now. We have these out-of-the-box reports. We recently added the data stewardship insights, and we're going to continue to work to add more reports and enable custom reporting for customers as well. And from a data policy perspective, we have the self-service access policy, which is tied to this capability, and the data access policy starting with storage and SQL as well. Okay. So that was a quick sneak peek into the roadmap. From a customer story standpoint, we have a bunch of stories around how Heathrow was able to use Purview to understand what data exists in the organization and lay the foundations of effective data governance. Earlier, all of these processes were pretty much manual in their organization. So they have kind of centralized to understand what data exists in their organization. Similarly, Grundfos as well, which is a Danish pump manufacturer, and kind of creates solutions to solve water and climate challenges, and how they were able to use Microsoft Purview to understand what data exists in their organization and create that single view for all their users, and the Limity Bank in Europe as well. Now, in terms of next steps, you can use these resources to get started. We have the Purview overview page, the Purview documentation. You can give us feedback. You can look at our blog. We are continuously releasing feature almost every week or every other week. So this is a great point for you to subscribe to it and monitor that in terms of new capabilities that are continuously being added to the product. And you can engage in direct conversation with the engineering team as well on the Purview discussion alias, and feel free to give us feedback. We continuously look at that in terms of shaping our roadmap and discussing what to do next as part of our next cycle in the organization. So that was the session. So thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to present on Microsoft Purview data governance. See you guys next time. Thank you.